but they're very calorie dense, so they make up for it.
Yeah, man, definitely do. Yeah, avocados are definitely great for that.
Hmm.
Definitely, man. All right. So the next question is, I'm not sure if I'm eating too much or too little. I'm 6 foot tall and 175 pounds. Is what's a good calorie target to gain muscle?
Hmm.
All right, so
I'm actually
go for
six
it.
foot one and a half, so I'm within that range. And
Oh,
I
awesome.
right now weigh 195. I plan on cutting back on some weight. But ideally, to get muscle, if you're 175, you want to crank it up to about 2,800, 3,200 range.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a solid amount too. That's
Mm-hmm.
like about what, like 16 times your belly weight? 16
Yes,
times your body
exactly.
weight?
That's like when I started gaining weight, which was the past few months, I started eating like a lot more. Except like
Mhm.
I said, my training was a lot of pulling and a lot of deadlifting and squatting, so it was a lot of weight on my back and my legs. So that's why it's not too noticeable. But
Mhm.
but yeah, definitely crank it up to that much, and of course, increasing so this has to be quality calories too. You can't just stuff your face with like protein bars and like processed foods. No, it just has to be calculated. Just eating the foods that we previously mentioned, and like certain beans, lentils, calorie dense fruits and vegetables, and you'll be fine.
Exactly, man. Yeah, perfect. And also, one other thing that I want to mention is that to consume 0.82 grams per pound of body weight. And just as a little guideline, if he isn't your exact body weight, is to multiply 175 by 16 to 17 calories, and then go ahead and consume that, and then make some adjustments along the way if he starts to plateau.
Yep.
So the next question is, do you recommend weighted dips over flat bench press? So this question is, so the short answer is it kind of depends whether I recommend weighted dips over a flat bench press. Is it depends. So a few things really come into me answering this question is, if you're a complete beginner, then I highly recommend the flat bench press, because the flat bench press, although it does get a bad rep for injury, it's because most people don't perform the lift correctly. They don't retract their scapula
Exactly. Yes.
when they're doing the lift. They kind of working more of their anterior delts and rather than and the actual chest region. And
Mhm.
yeah, so if he's a beginner, then I highly recommend flat bench press. And then once you hit that, and then once you've been training for a few years, maybe like a year and a half, once you really start to plateau on your flat bench, once you get to 225 for 5, and then you really start to plateau, or you get an injury, or you just really want like a new movement to build strength on, then I highly recommend the weighted dips, because weighted dips are basically the calisthenic version of doing the flat bench press. They work the exact same muscle groups, which is your mid chest, your anterior delts, and your tricep, which is the similar muscle groups that the flat bench press works. So, and also one other warning about the weighted dips is weighted dips are more of a high risk, high reward type of movement. Um, so basically, weighted dips are like the conventional deadlift of the lower body. So weighted dips, like it really depends on how you're structured and your limb sizes are for you to do that movement. If you're a guy that has really long arms and you're an ectomorph, then it may be like your range of motion might be a little bit different than versus me and other people who have shorter limbs who are doing weighted dips. So that's one of the thing as well.
Mhm.
If you can't so take it. So there's actually a little quick test that you guys can try out while you guys are listening to this podcast. Is that take your arm and then bring them behind your back. If you can't get at least 30 degrees of motion, then weighted dips aren't for you.
Mhm.
Weighted dips aren't for your limb size, and there's a lot of different aspects to doing weighted dips too. It's your rib cage size, your limb size. There's a lot of different factors that come into play, training experience. So it's really hard to say whether I recommend weighted dips over flat um bench press. If you have shoulder issues, then yeah, definitely stay away from weighted dips. And
Yes.
yeah, if you have shoulder issues, definitely stay away from those. And also everyone's range of motion is not the same on weighted dips. I'm just gonna be honest about that. Like you might like some people can only go to 90 degrees on weighted dips with their elbows on 90 degrees, but some people can go a little bit lower and get away with that. It totally depends on how you're structured and your limb size. And is there anything you want to add, Marcos, to that?
Man, you nailed it, but you nailed it with everything. Like we said, like the range of motion, we all have different body structures. Your shoulder alignment is a huge factor because me, myself, and also many of my clients have asymmetrical shoulders, or even like from the recurrent spine, or asymmetrical. Or people may have scoliosis where the alignment is out. And since when you do dips, you're locked in one position. If you're asymmetrical, you're not gonna be able to do it properly, put more pressure on one side than the other. So ideally, it's not a good idea to do dips if that's your situation. But definitely just working on the foundation of just working your body weight with push-ups and dips to start off. If those are easy, you can do this properly with no pain. And like you said, your scapula is in place and your shoulders aren't rounding forward. And of course, you can add a weight to just increase the difficulty. That's if you can do it safely and properly.
Exactly.
But if for some reason you feel pain, let's go with body weight, or even working one arm at a time. So maybe doing single arm dumbbell bench presses, or doing like working. Some people may not like this, but it helps out with working one arm at a time. So maybe with a cable, doing like cable presses, doing things like that.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. Because here's a quick little tactic. When you're doing a bench press, like those of you who are listening, I'm gonna have you recommend do this. If you guys are listening to this on Instagram, go ahead and watch me do it. So what you want to do is bring your traps into a shrug position. So you're doing up, and then you're retracting your scapula back and then down. So you're doing up, back, down right before you do the lift. So you're bringing the shoulders back, and you're sticking your chest out, and you're creating a slight little arc for you to give yourself a base to push off of. And then go ahead and bring your legs to the side of the bench to give you a little bit of a leg drive, and then keep those elbows locked in, and then explode up every rep. And then when you incorporate those tips into your bench press, you should be able to perform it safely and effectively as well. All right. So next question is, recently went fully plant-based, but I'm having trouble consuming enough calories to maintain my weight. What do I do? So he's having trouble maintaining his weight. So he's not having trouble gaining or losing, but he's just, so if he's having trouble maintaining, then he's probably losing weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then basically, like, I feel like we already answered this question. So like to just sum it up, I'd say just eat more calorie dense foods, count your calories if you're not already, to make sure you're consuming enough, and if your goal is to just maintain your weight, then take your body weight and multiply it by 15 or 16, and then just consume that amount of calories every day, and you should be able to maintain your weight. And let's say that you do find out how many calories you need, and you're having trouble getting enough calories to hit that number, then yeah, which goes back to my previous tip, consuming more high calorie dense foods like nuts. Yeah, like nuts, smoothies, and things like that. So we talked about it in the beginning of our episode.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add,
That's pretty much it. Maybe we planned that part where we answer those questions about the calorie dense foods and the foods that are high in healthy fats. So definitely eating more of those, or even just adding like 50 extra calories per meal.
Yeah, exactly.
Even that alone can make a difference. Maybe like a big spoonful of beans.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
A few extra dates, a few extra nuts, a few extra probably 2 handfuls of greens. That alone could add like an extra 200, 250 calories a day. And just adding a little bit extra to each meal. So it just adds up over the day, over time, over the weeks, over the months. So just that little change, a little extra that you add per meal, can make a difference over time.
Exactly. But a quick little just to go like a little bit off track a little bit, like when people ask like how do I get enough food, I'm always here wondering like how do you not, like it's so easy to eat like a 1200 1400 calories, you know, like it's so easy to eat that much, right?
We do it by accident. But yeah, but then again, not all of it, not everyone thinks that way, so we have to like see it from their perspective. So
exactly.
Yeah, so just eat a little bit more. Just calculate it and just make like a little reminder, like see how much you eat per day, and then just add a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, making it simple, like just being aware of that, making it like a little bit more simple, making simple reminders, and just actually eating more.
Yeah, exactly. For my clients who don't really track their calories, who are not really like a numbers type of people who don't really track their calories, what I recommend is based on what they're already consuming, if they're having trouble gaining weight or maintaining their weight, I would just add one more meal to their overall day. So if they're consuming 4 meals a day, maybe make that 5. If they're consuming 5, just add 6. That little one tip really does always make a difference, because when they're adding one more meal, like it's just stuck in their head now, like, oh, let me just eat a little bit more, let me just eat a little bit more, and they end up eating a lot more than just one meal. It's a little hack. It's a little hack for those who are having trouble gaining weight. Just add one more meal to what you're already consuming, and you should be fine.
Yeah, just keeping it simple is like there is like a magic pill to take. It's not like a special strategy. It's really simple. Just eat a little bit more. That's it.
Yeah.
Just keeping it simple is the best. Simple and consistent. There we go.
Yeah, simple as well.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question is, I'm worried about losing muscle after going vegan. I would like to start a program, but worried about my protein intake. What would you guys suggest? So this is kind of a similar question to what we've been answering as well. Like, so he wants to go, he's thinking about going vegan, but he's worried that he might lose muscle because he's not going to be consuming enough protein. So this is like a common thing that a lot of people experience when they're vegetarian, or when they really want to transition into a plant-based diet. This is very common among people who are fitness enthusiasts, maybe who weren't vegetarian before, and they're really used to consuming a lot of animal products and meat. When they really decide to go vegan, they always so this issue for them always comes up, and to basically what I recommend is just forget the idea that you need to consume an insane amount of protein to maintain your muscle mass, which is completely false by now. I've written like almost 3 articles on this very topic itself, and we actually did a podcast on this, I think, because on the top 10, on top 10 sources of plant-based protein. So you guys can go check that out, and yeah, just forget the idea that you need an insane amount of protein to maintain your muscle mass. If anything, like muscle retention during fat loss is more to do with your training rather than your protein intake. So if you're maintaining all your strength, like regardless of what you're eating, you should still be able to maintain all your muscle mass regardless, unless you're severely under eating. Then in that case, yeah, that can affect your gains. But overall, like there's tons and tons of plenty of plant-based protein sources that he can eat, and you don't need an insane amount of protein to maintain your muscle mass. All you really need is 0.82 grams per pound of body weight, but you can make a lot of good gains even less than that. Like I've had periods of my life where I was consuming 0.5, 0.6. Like right now, I'm actually experimenting with something. Right now, I'm consuming 0.62 grams per pound of body weight, which comes back to around 120 grams, which is completely doable with no protein powders or anything. And I've been maintaining my gains and actually seeing a lot of more progress as well. So yeah, don't even worry about it, man. Like it seems to me that if he really wants to go vegan after for his own reasons, but he's worried about his fitness, and I wouldn't worry about it at all. I wouldn't worry about it at all.
If he eats enough calories, he shouldn't worry about like not getting enough protein at all.
Yeah, definitely.
Even like one time I went for like a lower protein diet before, and I would usually get like 120, 130 and still make steady progress. Like
yeah, exactly, man. Like
the intake line, he'll be fine. He's not gonna lose muscle. Worst case scenario, he maintains.
Yeah, dude, exactly. Even if you are, let's say that he does. Let's say that even though it's not true, let's say that he does go vegan, and the first 3 weeks, he loses 5 pounds of muscle because he's not counting his calories correctly. He's still so new to the plant-based diet, he doesn't know what food to eat, so he's severely under eating, right? Let's say that happens, right? After those 3 weeks, let's say that the last 2 weeks of the month, he figures it out. Like he starts to figure out what foods to eat. He starts to tracking his calories. He watches our old podcasts and he writes down all the foods that he's supposed to eat. Let's say that he figures it out and he bumps his calories back up, right? Like muscle you lost, you can gain it back very, very quickly. Like once you like the muscle you have, it doesn't take much to gain it back. That's why when you see people who had an injury and they're out of the gym for 2 or 3 months, when they come back to lifting, their gains start to come very, very quickly. So the muscle you already have, even if you lose it, it's gonna come back like very quickly. Like I've seen it with myself when I had my own injury. I've seen it with so many of my clients who are getting back into the gym after being sedentary for so many years. So worst case scenario, you might lose some muscle, but you're going to gain it back anyway. So there's no point in that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So there's one last question left. Is I've been vegan for 3 months now, but still not losing any weight. Would be appreciated thing. So this is a very similar question to the other two. If you haven't been losing fat for the past 3 months, then I would either bring your calories back up to maintenance, make sure you're actually counting your calories correctly, and after bringing your calories back to maintenance for a few weeks, then go back into diet mode, and then you should break through your previous plateau. If you're still not, there's probably some error going on, whether you're not weighing out your foods correctly, like your serving sizes are way off, you're not counting it correctly, you're not actually in a caloric deficit. It might be anything along the lines of that. And also you might be experiencing the whoosh effect like we talked about earlier, like you're so stressed out, so eager to get your goal that your cortisol levels are through the roof and you're holding on to a lot of water weight. So yeah, like if you're experiencing this and you've been you're not losing any more weight, then I would just bring your calories back to maintenance for a little bit and then go back.
And like I mentioned before, the question back is also the quality of food that you're eating too. If you're like a junk food vegan, you're not losing weight. Of course, you're still eating like a lot of processed foods, and a lot of it gets stored as fat. So what you want to do is eat like a whole food plant-based diet where you eat minimal, like where you minimize the amount of processed food that you eat. You eat more like fruits, vegetables, nuts, preferably gluten-free grains, things like that.
Exactly, man. Exactly. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in.
I forget mushrooms.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in, my Instagram people. I'm going to go ahead and end the call here, and then I'll see you guys next week. I ended the call off for Instagram. Dude, 24 people actually showed up this week.
Yeah, I did. Nice. I did see like people were coming and going, but yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah.
Give me 1 minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool.